How you doing, guys? This is the Lord Humongous from RuleTheWasteland.com, and this video is about 5 things that every serious prepper should have to be actually prepared for any shit-hit-the-fan scenario or serious disaster. Now, when I say serious prepper, I mean that obviously you should have your basics squared away. You should have food, water, protection, stuff like that for, at least a couple weeks, preferably more like 6 months, but even 14 days or whatever will get you through the vast majority of disaster type situations, weather scenarios, stuff like that. But this is stuff people who really want to be seriously prepared for any situation, who consider themselves serious prepper. You should have these things squared away. And the first one is a compost pile. I just wrote an article on RuleTheWasteland.com. Actually, it's a second part of a 2-part series on composting for disaster preparedness. It may sound lame. People don't think about stuff like compost, but if you actually want to have any sort of sustainable type homesteading situation, you got to have some way to not only get rid of certain types of organic waste, maybe even like manure and stuff like that, but you also have to be able to plant crops and get rich soil without running down to Lowe's and picking up some Miracle-Gro. Composting can do all these things for you, and they get rid of all your organic waste, even your manure, and they can produce rich soil for you to use to grow things. And that's one thing you definitely will need for any long-term disaster scenario, which hopefully would never happen anyway, but you can certainly integrate composting into your normal everyday life even if nothing happens. And those are the best type of preps, are the ones that make your life better, as Jack Spirko says, when times get bad or even if they don't. The second item is information on wild edibles in your area. Unless you live in the most downtown city part like New York City, and even then there's probably some sort of wild edibles in your area, whether that's local animals, whether that's plants. Pick up a book like the Peterson Field Guides on wild plants. Specifically look up the stuff in your area and don't wait until something happens to learn about it. Go up there now, identify them, identify where they are, things like that, see what's growing in your area, and always have a physical copy of this type of information, even if you just print it and put it in a binder. You don't have to buy the book. But if electricity goes out or web access goes out, you don't want to be reliant on those things. So make sure you have physical copies of information on wild edibles in your area. The third item is physical maps. Lots of people have a pretty good idea of what's in their general vicinity, their general city, neighborhood, stuff like that. But in the outskirts of even your own city, certainly your own county and state, you're not going to know all the little roads and everything else of where, how to get everywhere, or even where everything is. And so it's a great idea, especially for areas outside of your state. I have more detailed maps for my state and my county, but for the entire country I have it's just a really tiny thing you can stick it in your bug out bag. It's basically a mini atlas, and it won't show you all the very huge details, but for every state you can find all the main highways at least. So if you had to travel cross country in some sort of crazy scenario, you would at least know if you were going the right way and not just have to rely on cardinal directions and road signs like city signs. You can have a much better plan of what would be the shortest distance, what would take you around naturally occurring obstacles. You could bypass bridges or mountains or areas of town that that may be really bad, inner city type stuff. So that type of information is really great. For your local areas, I would even go so far as to mark the map, maybe a couple dozen miles around you in any direction of points of interest, points that you would want to watch out for, stuff that you may have want to check out if things got really crazy. Now, obviously, this is for really outlier type situations that will hopefully never happen anyway, but it's a pretty simple preparation you can do that would make a big difference if something like that did happen. And it's never a bad idea to have something like this lying around just for a normal situation too. Sometimes your GPS or phone signal will go out in the car, and you have to rely on maps. A skill that's kind of lost. The next one is a local water source, preferably a well, and if it is a well, a hand pump. Now, I personally don't have a well dug here yet. I'm still looking into that. The good news is, I just moved into this house not that long ago. Probably should have one by now. I do have two 30-gallon drums full of water and a method to purify any additional water that I get. The good news is that here in Florida, you could probably dig a hole 6 feet down and water would start coming out. Not to mention there's a lot of local areas, ponds and stuff like that, where water could be procured if I needed it. And I have a way to purify, multiple ways actually to purify that, and I have several dozen gallons stored here at the house. But it would be much better to have a ongoing, easy source of water that I was fairly certain at least wasn't contaminated, because any, small ponds basically get a lot of runoff around here because there's just so much rain and everything that there's a lot of oils and stuff from the road, and trash can get into there, so it's not the best source of water. Not to mention, in any sort of disaster situation, you're not going to want to have to leave your house if you don't have to. So having a source of water right in your backyard is obviously advantageous. Around here I could probably get away with driving a shallow point well or a sand point well, which is you may only have to go down 25 feet and have all the water I could use. And you want to make sure you have a hand pump. Even if you do already have like a solar or anything like that, you want to be prepared for things breaking, crazy stuff like an EMP or like a lightning surge that could blow out your electronics. So always have a backup if you have a well, especially if you have a really deep well, because around here, like I said, in an emergency you could just dig like a 10-foot hole and water would probably start seeping up into it, which would be a lot of work, but it's definitely something you could do in a disaster. So you've got to have a water source. And if there's no way you can have a well, maybe you live in an apartment or something like that, bust out your map that I was just talking about, mark your points on there that may have water sources. Even if it's really nasty water, if you have the proper type of filtration systems, you could use it in an emergency. We're talking about emergency situations here. So even like drainage, runoff, stuff like that, in an absolute emergency, that would be an option. So mark on your maps those different areas, ponds, rivers, anything like that that may have some water sources in an emergency. The last one, and this is one that a lot of people don't talk about, is a bicycle, and preferably even a bicycle trailer. I have a bicycle trailer that I got that I'm working on right now. We'll hopefully do a video on soon. You know how I am with my projects. And it was originally made for to have 2 kids in it, so it was just all canvas, but it has a good frame. I'm going to convert it to a cargo trailer. Obviously the frame isn't set up to carry a whole lot of weight, but if it was meant to hold a couple kids, it should at least be able to hold 150 pounds before you have any stress related issues there. I already took some of the stuff on there, so I just need to build a flatbed on there that maybe I can put a tote on to make it simple to carry cargo around. And it would be a great option for bugging out or procuring supplies or going to get that water in situations where you may not have access to any more gas. Maybe there's like a crazy EMP and none of the electronics are working. A bicycle is a great last minute option for travel and even bugging out, and you want to be able to carry not all your stuff, but you want to be able to carry enough stuff with you without having to carry a huge backpack while riding your bike. Or at least even if you are carrying a backpack, you can carry even more on your trailer. And so I'll show you that. But even in everyday life, it's great to have a bike around. People drive way too often, and you can get a lot of your local errands done without using gas. A lot of times even quicker. When you're talking about like a mile or 2 miles away from your house, you'd be surprised at how much time you can actually save sometimes just by riding your bike. And it's healthier too, because you don't have to deal with certain traffic situations and you don't have to deal with parking situations. You can go right up to the front of the building and just lock up your bike. So look at what's in your area, and that way you can, a bicycle can even help you out in times when there aren't any disasters that you have to deal with. But certainly when there are, a bicycle could be super, super advantageous for a lot of reasons. I recommend having like a hybrid. Right now I have a road bike, which is great for the non-disaster situations and could be good for a lot of disaster situations as well. But you probably at least want to have the option to go off-road at least occasionally without having a lot of struggle biking, because those thin road tires will just dig right into the dirt, and it's really hard to get a lot of traction there. So I'll probably buy a set of optional set of tires that I can swap out and give me a little more options if there were a disaster situation. So, not to get too long on this video, but that was 5 things that every serious prepper should have: compost pile, edibles, wild edibles information, local maps and physical copies, water source, preferably a well with a hand pump, and a bicycle with a trailer. So if you guys have any other ideas about what a serious prepper should have besides the basics, I don't know, you crazy people come in here and tell me, oh, it doesn't matter if you have all that, if you don't have a gun, you're gonna die. I think you people are smart enough to know that I at least have 1 or 2 guns lying around here, not to mention a few bags of rice and some goddamn toilet paper, so don't bother me with that bullshit. I have the basics covered. This is for serious, beyond the basics type preparation for long-term or serious disasters. You want to have this stuff covered. So let me know what you guys think, and if you have any ideas for that same sort of category of prepping, let me know in the comments. Check out the composting article on rulthewasteland.com, and I'll talk to you guys later.